Now we're going to talk about simplifying expressions. So the following properties here are true if we're looking at A, B, and C, and those are real numbers. We have the commutative property. A times B is the same as B times A, and A plus B is the same as B plus A if we're looking at the real numbers. So think about an example of this. 3 times 7, that's 21. And don't you get the same thing if you do 7 times 3? Yep. So that's an easy example of commutative. Let's also use 3 plus 7 for addition, commutative over addition. 3 plus 7 is 10, but 7 plus 3 is also 10. So the commutative property is true for multiplication and for addition. Associative property deals with grouping structures. Okay, so if you have A and you multiply A by the product BC, you get the same thing as if you multiplied A and B first and then multiplied by C. Likewise for addition. A plus the sum of B plus C, you get the same thing as if you added A and B and then added C. So again, let's do an example. Let's just do 3, 4, and 5. 3 times 4 times 5. Well, you get the same thing as if you do 3 times 4 times 5. Let's check it. Doing our order of operations, you would do inside the parentheses first. So you'd have 3 times 20. And here you'd have 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 20 is the same as 12 times 5, isn't it? Because 12 times 5 is 60. And 3 times 20 is also 60. And you could do the same thing with addition. You could do a simple example. Distributive property, that's also fun. So distributive property says if there's something out here, in this case we're talking about real numbers, but it doesn't just have to be a real number. It can be a variable that represents a real number. Outside a set of parentheses, you take this A and you multiply A times that first term, and then A times the second term, and you keep the sign of all the terms. Okay, so let's do some examples. So the first thing we're going to simplify is 3 times x plus 4. Okay, now keep in mind, what does this tell us? This tells us that there are 3 expressions x plus 4, like this. Does that make sense? If I wanted to write this out, I could. That's what that 3 tells us. There's 1, 2, 3 of them. Well, if you add them up, you drop the parentheses. X plus 4 plus x plus 4 plus x plus 4. And then you combine like terms. You have an x here, here, and here. You would get 3x. And if you combine the numbers, the 4s, 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 4 more, you get 12. So that's if you actually just write it out. Let's use the distributive property. Okay, so we're looking at this 3, and we're going to multiply 3 times the first term in the set of parentheses and 3 times the second term. Okay, so we have 3x, and then you have plus 3 times 4. The sign of the 3 is a plus, the sign of a 4 is a plus. So you do get 3x plus 12. Let's try the next one. So looking at the next one, we have x plus 2, and we're multiplying by x here. Okay, so you have this times this, you have a product. This is multiplication. And so the commutative property up here says if I have A times B, mathematically it is equivalent to B times A as long as I'm dealing with real numbers. Now we don't know what x is. X is a variable, but it is a real number for your purposes in this course. So we could write this if we wanted to as x times x plus 2. We could switch the order, okay? The same way we did 7 times 3 and 3 times 7. Multiplication is commutative over the real numbers, so I can switch the order. And if you switch the order, you can see, hey, wait a minute. Now I can do the distributive property. I can take this outside x right here and multiply by both pieces inside. So when you do that, you end up with x times x plus x times 2. And x times x is x squared. And then x times 2 is 2x. So this is the answer to this one. And you may see other people distribute. It's not, maybe you're not as comfortable, but it's not wrong to also distribute this way. Okay, but usually we rewrite it, especially at this stage in your math class. Okay, let's try another one. Simplify 2x times x minus 7. Okay, be very careful here. 2x, this is a product, and this is another term. So you're multiplying actually three things together. Do you see it? We have a 2, we have an x, and then we have this term x minus 7. We're multiplying all of them. But the easiest thing to do is to keep these guys together. Keep the 2 and the x together. I like to put them sometimes in parentheses. So you're really doing like 2x times x minus 7. So you take this whole thing, this 2x, and multiply by the term in the front and the term in the back. So you get 2x times x, and then plus 2x times negative 7. Because the sign of 2x was a plus, and then we multiply by the negative 7. And then you clean it up, right? So you get 2x squared, because x times x is x squared. And then here you have a 2x times a negative 7. We're going to multiply the numbers. We have a positive and a negative. We multiply those together, we get a minus. Then we have 2 times 7, which is 14x. The more comfortable you get with this, the faster you're going to go. You'll be able to look at this and just tell right away it's this. You don't have to do these intermediate steps, but for now I'm showing you just in case you need them. Okay, be very careful though. I have a lot of students who want to do A differently, and it's a wrong way to do it differently. They say, well, this is 2x times x minus 7, so I'm going to multiply everything by 2, all this stuff by 2, and then I'm also going to multiply everything by x, and then I'm going to add everything up. Okay, be very careful. This says multiplication. You treat this as one piece. Keep it together. It's like super glue that's stuck together. One of my colleagues told me that today. Okay, that is very different than if there was a plus sign in between. If you have something like this, we are going to FOIL. FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, and last. So we're going to multiply the first times the first. So the first times the first, that's 2 times x. Okay, F for FOIL. Then we're going to do O, which means we're going to look at the outers. Outer is 2 and a negative 7. So plus 2 times negative 7. Then we're going to do the inner. Okay, now the inner will be this x and this x. So plus x times x. And then we're going to do the last. So I'll underline the last just so you can see. So for the last, I'm going to write it the way we have it here. It will be plus x times negative 7, but usually we don't write it that way. We would say 2x, and then we do positive 2 times a negative 7, we get a negative 14. X times x is x squared, and x times negative 7 we usually write as negative 7x. Now we're going to combine like terms. We have a term with an x in it, another term with an x in it. Notice those are the only like terms we have. If you go through here, we usually look for the highest power of x. We have an x squared. X squared. Now we're going to combine the terms with x's. We have 2x and a negative 7x, so that's negative 5x. And now we're going to look at the constant, minus 14. Does that make sense? So we have FOILed that. Look at the answers. Very different, right? If I look at 2x, all of it times x minus 7, and then 2 plus x times x minus 7, the answers are completely different. So please do not confuse the two.